Restart the show because we didn't do, there we go.
You want to restart the show again?
Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, MMR.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really do appreciate you coming. We hope you'll come back more often and tell your friends about us. And if I can't get this email sent, then this modeler will not be able to join us tonight. And I don't seem to be able to get it going. There it is. All right. This is a show where mentors help modelers. And we really do we really do think that we make a difference in a lot of people's lives. Before I start the show tonight, I'd like to turn to Father Ron Walters for the prayer for our show. Father Walters.
Creator of the world, as modelers and makers, we recognize the intricacy and beauty of our world. We thank you for the vision and the artistry that you have given us. Continue to bless us with your creative spirit. Amen.
Father Walters, thank you so much for the prayer this evening and for all that you do for our show. We really do appreciate it. I really, as I was saying, I really do think that our show makes a difference to a lot of modelers. I had a modeler that I talked to earlier today that told me, Jim, you're not promoting what the benefits are for the show. You're really not getting across the fact that a lot of us are learning an awful lot of things from the show, and you're not saying that that's what's happening on the show. He said, you're not differentiating what the show is all about and what it's accomplishing for the individual modeler from a lot of the other shows that are out there on YouTube. And he told me that he thought that the variety of things that we try on the show, the fact that we talk about local hobby shops, the fact that we talk about mentoring at local NMRA divisions and local clubs, the different areas that we tried to present to you on the show, and frankly, the short, quick tips and ideas, bits and pieces that we do on the show. He told me, he said, this is so unusual. And he said, I never know what I'm going to learn, but I always come away with feeling that I learned something. And he said, it's a value that the show has that I don't think that you're communicating. Well, I'm not a salesman, as you can probably guess, but I had never really thought about it. I've had people tell me that the build-alongs have been extremely important to them by getting them to get back into modeling. Because for the first time, they felt like it was worth spending the money for the kit because they had somebody on the show that could help them build it if they ran into trouble. So I recognized that, but I had not recognized the rest of the benefits, I guess, that some modelers are getting from our show. Our show started because I believe in mentoring. I'm concerned about the fact that the people that have the skills today are, for whatever reason, not getting them passed on to the future generation of modelers. It really bothers me. That's how I learned. I learned from mentoring. I believe in it. I think it's the way that you pass knowledge from one person to another is by demonstration and by conversation and communication. That's why I started these in the first place. If we're successful in doing that, then I do hope that you'll come away from each show with some knowledge that you didn't have before, or at least a person that you can contact later and maybe talk with. If that's what happens, then that's what the shows are all about. That's what the benefit that you'll get if you watch the shows. So if you're interested in those kind of benefits, you think your friends are interested in those kind of benefits, this is the show for you. So with that said, I want to talk a minute about the new series that we started on Thursday evenings every 2 weeks called Modeling Lifestyle. This came about because I was thinking about the times that I could have met some of the really great modelers of the past. I could have met John Allen. I was in California during his time. I wasn't too far from where he lived in Monterey. Just never took the time. Could have easily met other great modelers of the time. Frank Ellison used to live in New Orleans. Would have been an easy thing for me to get to New Orleans and to meet him, but I never took the time. And now it's too late. I don't have the time. I will say that somebody sent me an email the other day with a voice that was the original voice of John Allen doing a clinic on photography and lighting. I think the clinic was for the NMRA or it was for Calbac. I'm just not sure where it was. So I don't want to play it tonight or anything like that because I don't know who owns it and so forth. But I'll be glad if you'll send me an email if you'd like to see it, because it's John Allen talking about model photography and lighting model photography. And it's interesting because the photos that he shows are of his railroad and different ways to light it and different scenes and different paint colors and so forth. So I thought it was a fascinating video to see. But it wasn't live. You didn't see him, you heard him, and then you saw the pictures. But if you'd like to see it, if you'll send me your email, I'll send you a copy that I have. My email is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. So knowing that I could have met these people, talked to these people, gotten advice, gotten some mentoring from these people, that's why we started Modeling Lifestyle. To try to introduce you to modelers in the 21st century, time that we're living in right now, time that all of us could take to meet these people. Well, we're going to try to put them on video. And we're going to try to do it with 3 of their friends so that you get a flavor of the interaction between this modeler and his friends during the conversation. And it's live, and you can be live with it. Only difference this time is you have to do it on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling. So that's what the show is. I'd like to show you a short video about the show.
Welcome to the Modeling Lifestyle, where we celebrate how modelers have embraced their modeling and friendships as a lifestyle. We discuss how modeling can become a life passion and lead to lifelong friendships. The goal of the Modeling Lifestyle is to preserve the modeling and interests of leading modelers in the modeling industry. The Modeling Lifestyle is sponsored by NGMC, who believes that through bringing hobbyists together with both information and modeling, the hobby will grow stronger with more model builders than ever. NGMC, which started as Narrow Gauge Modeling Company, is focused in 1/4 inch scale across hobbies. NGMC is a market leader in 1/4 inch scale with a range of products from over 50 vendors. In 2021, NGMC became the largest reseller of out-of-production model paint in North America with over 9,000 bottles in stock. Join us every other Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the next modeling lifestyle.
And I hate to say it, but we had one scheduled for the 15th of December that we've had to cancel because of issues that the people that were going to be on the show had, and we just couldn't come up with a way of solving the problem. So we had to cancel the show for right now. So our next one is going to be with Rich Cobb on the 29th of December. And I think that you'll really enjoy meeting him. He's a fantastic modeler. I found out about Rich's activities and his modeling and got a chance to meet him through Lou Sassy. Rich has done most of the model building on Lou's layout for the structures, and just a fantastic modeler. And I think you're really going to enjoy talking with him. And he'll be on the show on the 29th of December. As you've heard me say many shows, we need help. It's all run by volunteers. This is not my show. This is the show of all of the people who spend the time and energy and donate their time for free to produce these shows, to provide the information to you, to present on the shows. All of those are done by volunteers. The manufacturers that offer you discounts, all of that is because they want to, because they believe in what we're trying to accomplish for you. They believe in mentoring, and they believe in trying to get modelers building more models. If that's what you believe in too, we need your help. We just need more volunteers to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. I also want to talk a minute about, we also need financial help because we've got to pay the bills, to run the shows, to pay Zoom, to pay the website fees. And we just found out that there is an attorney who is a person on our shows and has presented on our shows before, Jeffrey Jordan. Jeffrey is a counsel for Arden Fox Schiff, a Washington, D.C. law firm. And Jeff has volunteered to provide pro bono legal services to help us get a 501c3, which is a nonprofit designation that the federal government gives to nonprofit organizations, to allow people that contribute to us to have tax deductions. I don't know how long that's going to take us to do. But I thank Jeff so much and his law firm so much for agreeing that he should be able to help us do this. For an attorney and for a law firm to consider us worthy of their help, to me, is a major accomplishment for New Tracks, because it's again an indication to me that we've got to be doing something right, or the people that are watching our shows and on our shows and participating in some way in our shows wouldn't be offering their help. And Jeff, I really appreciate you and your law firm for agreeing to help us get this 501c designation. In the meantime, if you can contribute something to us, it won't be tax deductible, but you'll help us pay the out-of-pocket cost of keeping the shows going and help us try to get off the ground our scholarship program. That's what the 501c3 is going to be all about. It's providing scholarships for young modelers, young model railroaders who are going to continue their education in a STEAM program in a college or university. This first year, it has to be only in the United States, but in the future, next year, hopefully, we want to extend that to other countries and eventually internationally all over the world. Because we believe that this is a way for modelers, for mentors, to in effect provide mentoring to younger modelers and help them in their careers and bring them along in life to a point where they are able at some point to be able to be self-sufficient and continue their modeling. It's the only show out there that I know. It's the only way out there that I know that such an effort is even being considered or underway. If we can get ours off the ground this year, if we can hopefully get enough donations from you this year through our Patreon account, which is New Tracks Modeling, then we'll be able to build on that success. And what we're trying to build on that success with is a lot of scholarships for a lot of kids, and more than $1,000 a piece if we can possibly do it. But it's going to take an awful lot of effort on a lot of people's parts. So yes, we need the funding. We need some help in making sure that we can pay the bills to keep our shows going. And we need to be able to get this first year's one scholarship for $1,000 off the ground. So we ask sincerely that you consider helping us. And if I can give you any more advice or information or answer any questions, my email is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. Now, with that said, I want to talk about some upcoming build-alongs. We have some tonight coming up on December the 7th, which was going to start tonight, but now it's got to be moved back because Bill Davis has a health issue and can't be with us this evening. But this one's going to be Berkshire Valley models of a house, the Walsh Duncan Bay Window House in Erasmus Forks, Colorado. It's available in both HO and O scale, and it's got a 20% discount on it. And Bill will be starting to build the O gauge model of this on the show starting next week. And I hope that, Bill, your health issue gets over right quick and the pain goes away. Banta Models is going to be on the show on January the 25th, starting the build of one of their kits. It's got a 15% discount on it. It's available in HO, SO, and F and G scales. And you can get the additional information on what that kit is and so forth on our website. And you'll see a picture of the model on the screen now. Atlantis Models, I asked the Hobby Manufacturers Association if they had any companies that might be interested. And Atlanta Models called me up and said that they'd like to do it. So they're going to start their build along on February the 22nd. It also has a nice discount on it. And it's going to be an O-scale fire truck, a gasoline truck. It's got a 15% discount. And that's going to start on February the 22nd. Also on February the 22nd, we've got another kind of different project. Rockin' Farm Toys is going to have an S-scale Kenworth 1370 service truck that they're going to be building on the show. And there's a nice discount of that, of 15% off of the model, the parts that you might need, anything to do with the actual construction of the model. You'll be able to order from Rockin' Horse Toys and get a 15% off the total cost. Going to another subject, the next My Build is coming up December the 21st, 2 weeks from now. Chris Course is the one that hosts this for us. I'm not sure, Chris, are you here this evening? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm here, Jim. Just a little quiet tonight.
Okay, then let me turn this over to Chris and let you take it from there, Chris.
All right. Okay. I need to get share screen, please. All right, there we go. All right. Of course, the next My Build is on December 21st, and it is, of course, featuring you. We have a bunch of entries already. So if you would like to participate, please send us an email to railrunner130@hotmail.com along with those pictures, and we'll get you on there. I've got a couple guys that I missed last time, but we'll definitely get them on this time, and then we'll make sure we've got everybody. So anyway, yeah, like I said, email me those photos. If you have not participated before, which is highly encouraged, please send me a photo of yourself as well, so that way we can set you up with a title card. So please send me those photos and we'll get you on there.
And if you've got any questions about it or anything like that, or what kind of photos or anything, just send it to Chris and he'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, we
Chris?
can work with pretty much any pictures you sent us. I know guys have said, well, you know, they're not the greatest of quality or they're not the biggest of size. Doesn't matter. Just send us what you've got and we'll make it work.
The important thing is to show everybody what you're working on and what you're doing, because that's the educational part of it. That's the mentoring part of it.
Yep.
So Chris, thank you so much.
Sure thing.
This that segment, My Build, is sponsored by the two magazines that I write articles for that are owned by Amy and Dan Doherty, S-Scale Resource and O-Scale Resource. I don't care what scale you're in. The purpose of those two magazines is bringing more modeling back into model railroading. Well, that's what we're trying to do here. That's why I picked those two magazines to write for, because it seemed to me what they're trying to encourage is more people building more models. That's what I'm trying to do. So this was a natural for them to be involved in this segment of our show, and I really do appreciate their involvement. I also need to say that both of those magazines have made significant contributions to our scholarship fund already. They're the only two magazines that have. I hope that other magazines will see the benefit in our scholarship and what we're trying to accomplish here. And we'll also want to join in, even though right now we can't promise, when we're going to get the 501c3 or whatever. But if they're interested, if the other magazines out there are interested and really want to help achieve the program that we're trying to do, whether they want to be on our show or not, whether they want to advertise for us like these two magazines do and like O-Scale Trains does, thanks to Martin Brettfield, NMR, that's up to them. But I do think the scholarship program is something that everybody can get behind. It's going to be much better if we all try to do it together, it seems to me, than each individual company having to go to the time and trouble and effort of putting one of these together, because I can promise you it has not been easy for us. And we're doing it with volunteers, and we're doing it best we know how to do, and hope we're not making many mistakes along the way. But we're just trying to get it started here and trying to make a way for young model railroaders to get help in secondary education. That's what this is all about. And that to me is one of the greatest things that right now we can do for a young model railroader. So with that said, let's start the show. And I hope that Hank Primas has been able to join us so far. I know he was going to, I just don't know if I haven't been able to see him on one of the screens yet. So Hank, if you're here, I'll introduce you and you can do your quick tips. Obviously, Hank is not with us yet. Then I'd like to talk to Gary Shurgold, MMR, who does our bits and pieces. And Gary is going to make a pitch after this for help in getting more bits and pieces information, because Gary's been doing this now for week after week, and he needs help with ideas, because one person can't just come and come up with something creative that can be of help to a lot of modelers all by themselves week after week after week. So if you've got a tip, something that you think would be interesting, then Gary's going to give you his email and send it to him, and he'll make sure that you get on one of the shows coming up. So Gary, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Hi, thank you very much, Jim. Okay, tonight's bits and pieces. Share screen. Go to 2, share. Everyone can see that? I hope.
Yes.
And slide presentation. Okay, bits and pieces for tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about sandpaper. Now, sandpaper comes in all courses This is extremely fine coarse sandpaper. And one of the things I do with it is when I'm building a building, I put it on a roof and use it as roofing. Now, this is pretty straightforward application. It can be distressed and weathered a bit. And this is what it looks like on one of the buildings that I have done way back when. Another thing I do with the sandpaper, when you're using the buildings, you end up with a bunch of scrap pieces. Well, I don't throw those away. I put them in a bag and I save them. And I come up with, as you can see here, quite a collection of bits and pieces of sandpaper. So what I do is I make up these little masonry blocks. They're 1.5 by 2 inch and 2 inch by 2 inch, about quarter thick. And these are little scrap pieces I've had over things that I've built. And I apply the sandpaper to these blocks. And I use these blocks for my modeling projects. When they're wear out, all I do is just refresh them with new paper. Now on the back, on these little blocks, I put a double-sided tape, and then I wrap the sandpaper around them, and I end up with these sanding blocks. Another thing I do is, after I do that, I end up with even smaller pieces, as you can see here. So I got looking one day, I thought, gee, that's, throw those away, it's crazy. So I get a bunch of popsicle sticks. I like popsicles in the summertime when it's hot, to sort of cool me down. And I save these. And then what I do is I take these small scrap pieces that you'd seen earlier, and I wrap them, put a little glue on each side, wrap them around, clamp them with popsicle stick in the bottom and the top, let them sit for half an hour or 15 minutes. Then I take them and trim them down, and I end up with these finished sanding sticks. When I'm done with them, I just throw them in the garbage. And as you can see here, the variety I have of all the different little sanding sticks that I've accumulated and made over a period of a year or two. Now, my wife, she gets these little fingernail file things. They're a sort of a rubbery cushion thing. And when they wear out, rather than throw them in the garbage, I do exactly the same thing with these. I get some sanding paper and put them on each side. And then I end up with these nice little sanding files. And that's bits and pieces for this week, Jim.
Gary, I really do appreciate it. I'm really impressed with the bits and pieces segment that we do. And I know that you've been doing it now for quite a while and you're running out of ideas. So, you know, let me try one more time to appeal here. If you've got any ideas, please let Gary know. And then he'll get you scheduled to be on the show and talk about them. So that we can continue this, because I hate to see this segment die. You know, when we first started these kind of things with Paul Thompson, you know, he got sick and we had to stop. Gary came along and offered, and I think it's extremely beneficial, and we're getting a lot of comments, favorable comments about doing these, because they're easy things that people can do, and they're not complicated and they're not expensive, and it's just easy. So if you have some ideas, please contact Gary, and let's try to keep this kind of a series going on the show. Gary, thanks again.
Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, now I'd like to introduce Michael Groves, who owns Darwin Lighting Without Wires, who is unfortunately trying to sell his company so that it can become even bigger than it is right now with somebody else's guidance. So Michael, welcome and join us.
Thanks very much, Jim. Good to be with you once more for my final show on this. And yeah, so in the last couple of weeks, we've been building a building.
Guys, come on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. All right. So if you remember, what we did was we took a building like this and we took some alfoil and put it up into the roof so that in fact it reflects the light and cuts down on the light that's transmitted through the roof, because nobody wants to see lighting through the roof of a building, especially when you turn the lights out. And then one of the other things we did was we created a little room, as you remember, in this building. And I just created a picture. Well, I actually just pulled one off the internet, glued it on there. And then we worked on, okay, how are we going to light this? One of the things we did was we had a fiber going up in this, a small fiber into here. And if you remember, we then put a small fiber actually sticking out. You can't see it, but it's actually sticking out right underneath this door. So what I do is I'm just going to show you some couple of sort of final pictures of this. And then I want to talk just about a couple of other items that might be of interest to you. So if you don't mind, I'm going to do a screen share. Okay, good. All right, here we go. And we're going to take it at here. And let's see, where is my, sorry, I'm looking for where this, oh, here we are, play. Okay, good. All right, so if you remember last week, we looked at how much light you need, and I was using a 1.5 millimeter fiber on this building, and you could see, actually, you just couldn't see anything inside it. It was just too much glare inside. And so if you remember, I took it down by about to 25%, which really almost was a 0.75 millimeter fiber. And now you can actually start to see some of the structure that's inside there in that little room that I just showed you. So, you know, the amount of light you put into a structure is really important as to what you really want to see. It's extremely easy to do the lighting. Now, I wanted to show you then, so this was the picture I showed you last week, where what I had done was I actually have then the light inside that room, but it also had a spotlight. And I had a spotlight on the outside, and all I did was just stick a fiber in at 45 degrees. Didn't do anything special to the fiber, just nipped it off as usual. And there I got my spotlight. Well, I decided to modify that. And so here's a different shot of that same building. And what I have is, so I have the light instead of outside the building, I have it just inside, and that's why you can see quite a glow on that small window. But now you can see the glow from a single fiber that's over that door. So the door that's on, I don't know which side you're looking at, but anyway, it's on my right side. And all I did there was, if you remember, I stuck some foil underneath that overhang, just drilled a hole, stuck a fiber in, and voila, I've got the light. And just, you know, darkening it down a little bit, sort of, you know, so evening time or almost nighttime, you can get more of an idea of what it would look like. So it's extremely easy to light your buildings up in various different ways without spending much time on it. So that was really the building that we've had fun with, and that's because that's this little building here. So I'm just going to put that aside for a moment, and I want to talk about one other thing that I find that's tremendously important in modeling layouts, and that's having a good backdrop. And we obviously, this is not quite the same as lighting a building, but I think you can see those mountains back there. Well, I have to be very grateful that I actually have a wife who can do that sort of thing. I can ask her to put a tree in there, and within less than a minute or so, the tree will be in there looking just like it should, and the right sort of scale. It's unbelievably good. So I'm very, very fortunate to have somebody who can do that. But working on that so it doesn't look flat is really critical for sort of creating that depth. So I want to show you a couple of other pictures. Now, earlier on when we taught, when I taught 2 weeks ago, I talked about a paper building. And interestingly, I put this up on our Fiber Guild, and I've had considerable interest in how do you light a paper building. So you may remember, I actually had this picture, I just got it off a CD. Somebody was selling them at a show, and I just pulled one off, and I said, okay, good. I'll take a look at how to light that. And I decided I'm not going to cut out the windows. I'm going to leave the windows completely intact. So what I did was, though, flip it over, and I put foil across the whole back surface. And you've seen me do foil, obviously, on that building that we just talked about. But the reason for that is very important, because paper is going to really show everything through. And you don't want to really see all the detail. All you want to see is the effect in the windows. So the foil does a very simple job. Gluing it on, very, very simple. Takes no time to do that, which is great. So the next thing, if you remember what I did, was I took some foam and I just cut out the window shapes. I decided to do that. And then I just really ripped into the foam and created channels, which my fibers are going to go into. So that's what you see there with the fibers. The blue things are actually just putty, which is holding the fibers in place while I glued them using a very tacky glue, which is, it sort of doesn't damage the fiber at all. And so what you can see is the fibers run up and sort of hit the top of that the little hole there of the window, because I wanted to make sure that the light looked as though it was coming from a ceiling light in that building. So, and then I collected the fibers, as you can see, down through a common channel and out through the base. And if you remember, that was the effect. So, and you can see the light is actually coming from the top, as though it looks as though there's a light in the ceiling of those rooms. So again, very, very simple to do. The other thing I didn't show you was, if you remember, I'll just go take you back to this picture. At the top, you see it says Todd Gillette Drum Company. And I thought, well, I wonder if I could do anything fun with that. Well, I made a bit of a mess of it, as you're going to see. And there it is. So actually, what I did was I actually put some fiber behind the piece of paper, stood it out a little bit from the wall, and now I've actually got a lit signage on the building. And all that is I just took 5 fibers, glued them together on a piece of wood, thin piece of wood, stripped them. In other words, I just used a Dremel tool and just used a sanding disc. I went straight down and back along them. And actually, I've got too much light coming out on the right-hand side where the fibers come into it, and not quite enough on the left. So I need to modify that and work on it a bit. But it's kind of a fun thing to do. So I just wanted to leave you with some ideas of things you can do with lighting that's a little different from the normal. I'm going to jump out of that now. So stop sharing. Anybody got any questions for that before I just want to cover a couple of other things? Are you all having fun with your lighting?
What do you do for your light source?
So, okay, so my light sources, I have, this is one of them. So this is my lamplighter, lamplighter 2. So I have various different lamplighters. This one's actually got a remote on it, so I can just turn it on, and there's my light coming out. There's a whole bunch of fibers I got stuck in here to show you a couple of things. I've got that. I do have a smaller one, and I'll just hold up this piece of paper. So I've actually got a lamplighter 1. We got the 2, and right now the 2S is off the shelf. So we're having just some challenge on the manufacturing of that one, quite honestly. But the lamplighter 1 takes half. Well, the lamplighter 2 is double the capacity of the 1. And what it is it's a really high intensity LED bulb that's inside this box. And that has heat sinking in it so it doesn't get hot. And optics and electronics to make sure that it actually gets the light into the fiber. And that's the complex part, and that's the part we sort of developed and put together. Does that make sense?
It does. How do you terminate it in a room? Like if you nip off where you want it to be, now you still have only a pipe. There's no globe on it or anything.
Right.
How do you do that?
So all you do is, right, you don't actually need to have any, all you do is just cut the end of the fiber off, and you've got your light. And your light is going to disperse from the end. But actually, you're asking a great question, because a customer came to me the other day and he said, do you know what I did? He said, do you see that? What I did was actually, I've got a little globe on the end of there, which is nothing other than a bead that I bought at Joann Fabrics. Now, mind you, I have to be careful walking around fabrics with necklaces because some people get the wrong idea. But after I get out of there, I cut the string off and then just stick the beads onto the end of the fiber. And this way there's a glow at the end, as you can see, but there's also a glow to the side. So if I was doing this with this building, for example, and it's possibly going to be a little bit too bright. Let's see, where are we? Yeah. So you can see that really gives me plenty of light up into that building. In fact, that's too much, and it's way too much into this part. So yeah, so you can do various tricks with it, but mostly I don't do anything with the fiber. I just cut it and I let the light reflect off the surfaces, and that's where I'm going to get my lighting.
What about if you want, like we have, I have in my living room, dining room, there's a globe light. And the way we used to achieve it on fiber was to heat the end of it.
Yeah.
So that it would melt into a ball. Is that feasible on this?
Yep, very feasible. It's just a plastic. So in fact, I just go over my wife's gas stove, which is nice. And I just literally take a fiber and go,
yeah.
Take a look. And I usually measure the diameter. And if I've increased it by about 50 to 75%, then I'm going to get a nice mushroom on the end of that fiber. Yeah, so it all depends what effects you want from the fiber. So, I mean, we obviously do have these globe lamps. I've got so much fiber here. I don't know what I'm doing here. I just sort of threw a whole lot of stuff on my table when coming here. Okay, so you can see those are globe lamps. So they're actually got a stem down them, and then we put a globe on the top of it. So, and we've got carriage lamps as well. So those are nice. They all come with fiber. You should just sort of stick them in and straight into the lamp lighter.
Okay.
But I'll show you some other tricks you can do, which people like. So I took a piece of aluminum tubing and actually crimped it onto this 1.5 millimeter fiber. And then I took some very much smaller fibers and put them in the top of it. So it's rather like you'd expect to see in those lights, remember those fiber lamps that they had. But I'd stick this up into a tree, and that gives me that beautiful effect of a tree being lit with some lights in it, as you might have out in a beer garden or something like that. So very, very simple effects that you can get from it. One of the other things I'd like to show you, which has nothing to do with lighting a building, but has to do with what you might do if you had a signal cross, or if you had a turnout. We actually sell kits now that give you the lighting for a turnout. And it remembers which way the turnout is switched, so that these little dwarf lights, and this is a nature one, they actually then give you the right color. This is just stuck into my lamp lighter, which doesn't know anything about direction. It's just I stuck the two fibers in. So I can show you that a bit more closely, probably. Yeah. So that just sticks down into the layout, and you just put it by your turnouts. The other thing that people are really enjoying is the railroad crossings. So we have those in all sorts of sizes. We have them in O, HO, and as well as N. In fact, I can't show you an N because we just ran out of them. We just had a big run on them over Thanksgiving. But you got those, and that comes with a bell and a whole kit. And that allows you to really be able to use fiber in a number of different ways across the layout. So both animation as well as then with the illumination.
Okay, here's the unseen question. How do you corral all this stuff underneath the layout?
Yes. So when you end up with a fiber spaghetti, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, I just created that. The easiest way that I found is I probably should show you my under the layout, but I actually don't corral it very much at all. I just take the fiber in and run it up to wherever I want, and I cut it to the right length usually, and that way I know exactly where every fiber is going. But I usually put the box, the lamp lighter box, I'm going to put that somewhat central to where I'm going to be running the fibers. So
right.
because they bend fairly easily. So I'm going to put this in the middle, say, of a 3-foot spread. So I've got 6 foot on either, 6-foot spread total, but only 3 foot on either side. You can use what's called a split loom, or you can use heat shrink tubing just to stuff it down. Don't heat shrink it, but just, it's just a nice tube that's cheap to buy. Plenty of that stuff. So a number of different ways, particularly if you don't want to see it. Some people have asked me, well, shall I paint it black? And I went, oh, no, that's horrible. I hate painting. The easiest thing is just take a heat shrink tubing, stick it over it, and you're done. And you don't have to worry about it.
So for all of us with OCD and like to have things nice and neat underneath, what's the minimum radius you can bend this stuff?
It's really about a fifth or 5 times the diameter of the tubing itself, of the fiber itself. So, for example, I can really bend that around quite far, but that's a 1.5.
So that's a plastic fiber?
It's plastic fiber. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Don't ever touch glass fiber.
No kidding.
Horrible stuff. People who work with glass fiber take great precaution, eyewear, handwear, and so on. You get those tiny fibers into you. It's just like working with fiberglass, but worse. They're sort of like designed to shear into you. So I had somebody come up to me recently and tell me that. But let's take a smaller fiber, and with this fiber, I can actually tie a knot in it. So, they're very flexible. It's a PMMA fiber plastic. So, yeah, and you'll see on my website, I've got some blogs as well as on my video site where I talk about how to bend the fiber. And that's the easiest thing to do. You just stick it in boiling water, put a tube on either side of where you want the bend to be for 2 reasons. One, it keeps those straight. 2, more importantly, it keeps your hands out of the boiling water. And then you can just easily create a bend. It takes 3 seconds. Pull it out. It sort of cools almost instantaneously, and you've got a perfect bend. It's very nice. On the website, on Google, if you just Google that, they'll tell you to use a hot air gun, and that's the best way to create boiled spaghetti. So I don't do that.
Well, Michael, I'm sorry that we have to go tonight, and I'm sorry that you won't be back with us next week. I wish you the best in selling your company. I know you worked awfully hard with you and your family to get it to this point, and I wish you much success in the future. And listen, if your wife would ever like to be on our show, I would love to see her show us how to do that kind of painting.
Oh boy, now she's in trouble, or I'm in trouble probably for that. Thanks very much, Jim. And by the way, our lamp-lighters are on sale for this coming week. If you buy a lamp-lighter and something else, you get 15% off instantly for it.
That's cool.
So that's great stuff. Jim, thank you. It's been really fun. I enjoy doing this stuff, as you can tell. And I hope the rest of you have enjoyed this time. And I'm sorry, I've got to go off to a Bible study that I run, and I've got people upstairs waiting for me. So I'm off and running. Sorry about that. Michael, thank you so very much. You really helped a lot of us understand what your product's all about. And for that, I really thank you. Thank you so very much, Jim. Okay, all the best to everybody. Merry Christmas, guys. You too. Bye-bye. Bye. Well, Jess Dozier, again, can't be here this evening. He will be back next week, but this is his really busy time right now. And he missed last week, and he's going to have to miss this week. But he will be back next week to continue the building of his diorama. So if you bought the diorama and you're waiting for him, next week he will be here definitely. Now I'd like to go to another build along with Alan Rogers, who owns Fine Creations. And he's building, I think, a magnificent church kit that he manufactures and offers in both HO and O scale. So Alan, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. So I'm going to give you a little talk about, when you're not trained as an engineer and you're designing this stuff, what happens. So by the way, I'm apologizing to Father Ron because he's patiently waiting on a kit from me. And as I've started building what turns out to be my presentation model for the HO scale version, I'm finding some mistakes. And so I'm going to have to reburn the foundation and reburn the window glazing. So Father Ron, it's probably a good thing I didn't send yours out yet, because I'd have to send out some replacement parts. But let me go ahead and just share some pictures here just for a second. Let's see. Okay. All right. So what you're looking at here, this is looking down on the model in progress. And that church is cruciform. That's an architectural term that means it's in the shape of a cross. Of course, the bell tower is in the lower left-hand corner. But I wanted you to see the bracing, which is pretty important. And I've got bracing along the bottom of the structure and some areas of the top. So let me go to the next picture here if I can. Let's see, I thought I could. There we go. So it doesn't look very pretty inside, but that's more of a close-up of some of the bracing. Incidentally, I designed my kits in Adobe Illustrator, and it's one thing to take what's going to become your window glazing and superimpose it over an opening in a wall in a software. It looks real good in the software, but I'm starting to learn that as you use the laser cutter, that it cuts out a margin around the material, making the actual finished product smaller than it was in the software. And that's the rub. My windows turned out kind of loose, and that's why I'm going to reburn them, Father Ron. Anyway, that's just a little bit of the inside. And if one of you guys was to build the HO scale version of this church and do interior detailing, my hat's off to you, because I'm telling you, with the bracing that's necessary and you have to hide it somehow, that would be a real project. So here's another shot of it. Incidentally, I have done a real hurry up job on this model, because in addition to this part of my life, I ended up playing 2 organ concerts in the last 10 days. And my other musical duties, especially with Christmas approaching and some funerals and weddings that have materialized, I kind of got behind the 8 ball and didn't get this model built as quickly as I would have hoped. And that's why I'm coming up with these problems now that I'm fixing. This is another shot right there. Incidentally, I have some feline friends that think they're helping me right now. So this is the back of the church. And as we discussed last week, I mentioned my technique for doing stained glass windows. And you can see just the light from my workbench shining down through those windows, that the effect is really quite nice the way I do them. This is another shot. So, and this is the front of the church. And next week, we're going to talk about putting on the roof and the crosses and the other 3D printed items. So that's pretty much all I have this evening.
Well, and I appreciate it so much. I really do. I think it's going to be a beautiful model once you get it finished.
Thank you.
And again, I love your stained glass window concept. I think that's really unique and different.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Well, now I want to turn to a modeler that I think you're really going to enjoy, Ralph Renzetti. Ralph does some of the most beautiful weathering I think I've seen, and he's with us this evening to show us how he does it. So Ralph, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I can't thank you enough.
Well, I rushed home because I wasn't sure whether I was going to be on or not. So I was out to dinner with my wife. So you got the better part.
Well, I tell you, apologize to her for me if there was any confusion, because I've been looking forward to this.
Okay, so basically what I do is I'll do a repaint if I have to, not very often. Although I'm doing 42 N scale locomotives, and I'm an HO guy with these big balloony fingers. Working on N scale is kind of a challenge, especially repainting, masking, putting decals on, decals, however you want to say it, and then doing the weathering. And doing it for customers, it's a constant thing. Like this 42 locomotives, I've been working on those for a little over 2 years now because I can't get the sound cards to go in them because everybody's having chip problems. So I usually to get away from the doldrum, the boredom or whatever, to get the mojo working again, I sort of veer off in other models. So this thing that I'm going to present tonight is what I call a mystery barn find. And it's all my weathering techniques all in one place. But I guess I should tell you that I started in the hobby when I was, probably 15, 16, but not in model trains. It was model cars. And I went into model planes and ships and that sort of thing and progressed. When I got married, I started to collect trains because there's a place here in Toronto called George's Trains, and I lived a block away. And I walked in there and he sold me on the hobby, just the fact that when I walked in, I saw a Y6B steam locomotive. It was used, it's a River Rossi, and I didn't have the money to buy it. And I asked him how much he wanted for it. He says, well, you can buy it on time if you want. I said, that would work out great for me. He says, how much money you got in your pocket? I said, I got 20 bucks. He says, give me the $20, that'll start. By the time I walked out of the store, he had tucked it under my arm as I was going out. So that got me hook, line, and sinker. So all of my modeling skills are now being shared in my hobby of model trains. So stop this. Come on, go. Of course, PowerPoint's going to act up on me. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this, what I call the magic barn find or the mystery barn find, these are all different techniques. The top corner is 1/24 scale. That's extremely weathered in a junkyard. The locomotive on the right, the Union Pacific, is an N scale locomotive that's been weathered, and that was for this gentleman in Baltimore. And the one on the bottom left was done for the 25th anniversary of the Siskiyou line for Joe Fugate. And of course, there's another version of the junkyard find with the dog taking a leak on a wheel. Okay, so when I do my modeling, when I veer off away from trains, it's always what if. I'm a freelancer, so I'm not bound by the nut and bolt count thing of a prototypical modeler. So my mind goes all over the place. So I had this doors here. That's another technique that I've mastered now. And I've got it down. That's in 1/24 scale, and I managed to get it to work down to 1/24 scale or 1/87 scale. So what if? And here's where the what if comes from. With my model cars like this 1958, 56, 57 Chevy, they never made it with dual axle. They never made it with extended cab. So I built the model. There's a 1929 Ford pickup, didn't have extended cab. I couldn't get dual wheels, so I put fat slicks on it. And the what if turned to this. And I keep going, what if? There's a 1940 Ford. Now, this is the kind of stuff you see in show models, not so much weathering. Obviously, this is not a weathered vehicle, but the bed of that truck is made with who was using popsicle sticks. That's the stir sticks that I used to get when I went in to buy a coffee in the morning. So I asked them if I could have a fistful of them. And you make up a bed and you put varnish on it and polish the hell out of it. And I had some stainless steel strips photo etched. What if? That's a Ferrari Mythos. We used to have in Toronto here, there's a highway that splits the city called the Don Valley Parkway, and it's policed by the Toronto police. All the other highways around are the Ontario Provincial Police. Well, they used to have a Camaro. When I was a kid, the story was it was a Corvette. They called it the Interceptor. So my thing was, what if? So there's the Ferrari. Okay, getting into the barn find. 1/24 scale. And I love doing dioramas. I can sit and just go down one rabbit hole after another and keep on going with the what if theory. And well, you'll see. I think we've all had this, or maybe we haven't, I don't know. I can recall when I was a kid, there was this story about a car that was found in a garage, this, like a pot of gold. It was a car in a barn that was ages old, but it was everybody's wish to have this car, like a Corvette or whatever. So I sort of got the same idea. And it takes me back sometime after 1989 in February, July 3rd. The progress is the presentation. So the car, we won't get into that yet. So this is all the scratch building. This is all wood that I had out in the garage. This is the barn I'm building up. So I've used cardboard as the wall, and I'm going to build on the cardboard. But all the strips and the beams and everything are all cut on my table saw outside. This was done in the wintertime, so I couldn't get out to the hobby shop. And lately I haven't been going anywhere. I haven't been doing very much because I have back problems that sort of keep me confined to the house. So with a little bit of playing around in 1/24 scale, and this works down to O scale as well. You can put knots in these boards that are not there to start with by using barbecue skewers or wooden toothpicks. You drill a hole, you glue the toothpick in, and then snip it off and sand it down. I use what the heck do they call it? A card file. It's for cleaning files. It's a very short-haired steel brush or wire brush. And you can actually create grooves or the wood grain in the wood. You can enhance it with that, which is what I do. And the stains that I used on here, this is just a hunter line stain. Since it's a barn, it's not a spectacular color. The stone walls here is just a casting that I got from Sterling Models. And I pour my own my castings from a mold that I got from them, and it works really well. And if you play around with it, you can actually join it one piece to the other and make a complete long wall. On the top here, I figure this is where the car is going to go, this find, the barn find. But I want to put a block and tackle in, and I'm sort of a stickler for detail. So I've sort of nipped off the corners of the beam up here so that when I put the chain up there, it'll look like it's worn. And the way the stone, this is just like I say, plaster casting. I take, what's it called? Thorny Branch. It's a paint that I got. It's a latex paint that I got from Home Depot. You brush it on and then immediately wash it off with water. And the dark part of the Thorny Branch paint goes into the grooves and you wash off the faces, and it looks like, to me, it looks like real stone. And then there is everything scratch built. These are not scratch built, they're 3D printed. And there's a technique to this as well that I will explain. The wooden crate up here, the Jack Daniels crate, that is 3D printed as well, but all of the wood grain on this box is done with AK weathering pencils. If you haven't tried them, I suggest you do. These are not watercolor pencils. These are, I don't know what the actual material is, but to me, they're better than watercolor pencils. I've been using watercolor pencils for years, and they do not react like these things do. This oil drum, I couldn't find one in 1/24 scale. So I made one, and that is weathered with the AK weathering pencils as well. The green and the white is, to me, a paint, but everything else is the weathering pencils, except for the streak down here and the circle on the floor. That's just enamel paint manipulated with mineral spirits. This technique is paint the cooler, it was a stainless steel color. It's a lacquer alclad paint. And then you paint over it with red paint. And the paint I used is Tamiya red. And before 20 minutes, half an hour max, you come back at it with a brush and some Windex, the original Windex, and you rub the edges with a brush, a soft brush, and you can rub the paint off as if it's rubbed off from years of leaning on it. That's how that's done. So to me, everything is in the details. I said I'm a freelancer, but it comes down to the details. There's the little, that's made out of a paper clip to hold the string for the block and tackle or the rope. Again, it's the wood grain on there is the weathering pencils. And of course, decals on top once it's done. And putting decals on these bottles was a pain in the butt, even in 24 scale. I cannot imagine doing that in anything smaller. So there's a black block and tackle with the chain. That's all scratch built again, just pieces of plastic put together to make it look like a block and tackle. The hook is a piece of, I think it was 18 gauge wire. Maybe it was bigger than that to make the hook. Threw some sand around the bottom and then put some more stain on it. This, I really fell in love with doing this wood chipping. This is the way I would have normally done it, and then you somehow put paint on and wash it down so that it looks like, I'm not even sure how you would do it because I've never tried that. But this one, you put some grooves into the paint, you stain the boards, whatever color you're going to use. I use Hunter line stains. And this is done with wax paper and Vaseline. You put wax paper on a surface. I tape it down so it doesn't move. You smear Vaseline with your finger on it, nice thin coat. And then with your boards, after you've stained them, I sealed them with a light coat of varnish. Doesn't matter which one you use. And then with a gloss paint and a brush, you just sort of put dabs of gloss paint along the board and then put it down on top of the wax paper. Well, sorry, I missed the step. You got to paint the wax paper, the Vaseline, and I used acrylic paint. Stick it down and overnight, and then you peel it off, and that's the effect you get. So I decided, well, I'm going to put another coat on. So I put a blue on, and I got that effect. And that was the door for this barn find. The padlock is just a piece of a part sprue with a part of a staple through the chain. And then I was experimenting with a paint spill. So these buckets I had to make, this is just tubular plastic that I put some, I think that was 20, 22, 24 gauge wire to make a handle. Put a little dot of plastic on either side to have the reinforced part, stuck the wire in, painted it silver. And I used my wife's inkjet, laser jet printer to print the labels, Sherwin-Williams. And the brush is just a piece of plastic flattened out with a piece of aluminum foil wrapped around it. So that's how it sat on the shelf, spilled over onto the Coke machine with the brush down there. I was going to do so much to this thing. I still haven't finished it completely. I wanted to redo the spokes on the motorcycle on the back with real wire. I never got around to it. I thought, no, that's too tedious. I'm not going to do that. It's another rabbit hole I don't need to go down. The oil funnel is made out of a piece of aluminum foil. And you can see the size of the bottles compared to the finger. So I scrounged around, got some parts out of the parts bin that I have. There's an old radiator on the floor. And the next thing is I made the tarp for the car. All the metal pieces, this corrugated stuff here, if you ever have grandkids, well, everybody's got grandkids, I think. I was looking at a cookie packaging that one of my I think it was my grandson had it, and it had 12 cookies in it, and the side and the dividers were this clear plastic, and it wasn't very rigid at all. You could hear it crinkle as soon as you picked it up, but it was shaped like corrugated steel, and I thought that's perfect. So I grabbed it and I painted it, and I just set it in there. I had some old fenders that I rusted and painted. And that's another technique I can explain too. The saw blade is just a piece of acetate that I cut a circle. And yeah, I took the time of notching all of the teeth in it, and the relief cut in it all the way around. But I had lots of time to do this, and there was no rush or anything. There's even a 2-man tree saw here with the handle on it that I made from acetate. These fenders, and this will scale down to about O scale. I don't know how well it'll work in HO or smaller. But what you do, and it's not something that you can do on a pre-painted vehicle. It works best if you're painting the vehicle, because you paint it the brown first, and then you paint it. You put a coat of clear varnish on top. I use Tamiya Clears, semi-gloss, and then I paint the color on top, which was Vallejo color. And again, it's down to the 20-minute mark, and then you rub it with the Windex again to get that finish. And if you rub too hard and you don't have the varnish on the brown color, you'll rub right through to the white paint, the white plastic. That's why the varnish is there. I made if you've seen the movie Wall-E, I made that. Oh, the hockey stick's missing. I made a hockey stick too that sits in the corner. Oh, there it is up there. So there's the barn find, and if anybody is familiar with the movie, you'll know exactly what that car is. But the idea here is the tarpaulin. This will work right down to N scale, where you can make the tarpaulin. This is Kleenex tissue soaked with 50% or 60-40 of glue and water, white glue, and you drape it down so that it has the look of gravity pulling it down. Even over here, I put some clips on it to help. But in order to make sure it didn't stick to the car, I covered the car with saran wrap or that cling wrap. And then once it's done and dried, you can trim off what you need to make it sit on the floor properly. And you can paint it whatever color you want, put all kinds of dust and things on it. And it works really well. I put 4 coats of paint, glue on it and then painted it. So this little guy, Wally, painted and weathered, scratch built. The hockey stick was made the same way. I played up to semi-pro, so I had to throw the hockey stick in there. And there's my final barn find with the Back to the Future. And every plate up here has a meaning. It's a movie scene, a movie or a TV series is connected with either the license plates or something in the picture, like you have the Star Wars helmet. Wally is another movie. Whatchamacallits, I keep forgetting their names. And then Back to the Future. So you have Bandit 1, that's Smokey and the Bandit. That was Miami, what was the cop show?
Right.
Anyway, yeah. And then Gone in 60 Seconds. The Lynn 274 was Biff's car that got dumped with manure in the movie Back to the Future. And there's a whole bunch of different things in there, but it's all in the details. The more details you put in, the more of a story it's going to tell. And this applies to our modeling in railroad as well. Each scene or each building that you do is a different scene. As you move along, it's like watching a movie. Every structure you come to, it's a different story. Or every train that goes through is a different actor. That sort of thing. So that's my presentation. If anybody has any questions, there you go. There's the different movies. Miami Vice, Iron Man, Smokey and the Bandit, Adam 12, Psycho, Gone in 60 Seconds, Caddyshack, and Biff's car.
Fantastic.
I think it is too. That's why I thought that everybody would love to see how you do things. And I was so impressed, Ralph, that I think it's really great. It really is. So thank you so much for being here this evening.
There's another thing that sort of distracts me from all the other stuff. I hate graffiti. So if I'm going to do graffiti, I'm going to make it memorable and something that you're going to recognize immediately.
Well, I tell you, you hit a good selection of the old shows, that's for sure. But thanks again, Ralph. I do appreciate so much you taking the time. Apologize to your wife about the dinner problem, and thank you again.
I get to take her out again.
There you go.
On a second date. Yeah.
Ralph, can I ask a question?
You can ask any questions you want.
Oh, we don't have enough time for that. But I would like to go back to the wood. You had used wax paper and then you put Vaseline on the wax paper. You stained the wood and then put gloss paint on the wood and squeezed it together overnight.
Okay, so wax paper, Vaseline, and then I took some Vallejo paint, the white paint or the blue paint, and you put it on top of the wax paper and Vaseline.
Spread it out. Then put the wood down on it.
And just like when you put water and oil, the paint's going to want to bead up. It's not going to want to spread out. But you work it a little bit, it will work. It will spread out. and the fact that it separates a little bit is what gives you the separation on the boards. So then you put dots of gloss on the board and
Mhm.
put it down on top of there and let it sit overnight.
Got it. Okay,
And then when
I
you peel them
accidentally
off,
did that once and wasn't sure what I had done, but it came out looking great. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions for Ralph?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of questions, but I'll just ask one. Ralph, do you do a lot of your work with freehand, brush, or airbrush, or a mixture of both, or sponges? For your
My weathering is basically all done by hand. I will do a protective coat between layers with an airbrush. I use acrylics, basically the clears, and I use oil paints. I use acrylic paints. I use watercolors. I apply with a brush. I apply with a sponge. I take off with whatever I can, use. But the airbrush is for my in-between layers and a final dull coat. And I don't buy the dull coat in the rattle can, although I do have a backup can just in case I run out. I buy it in bottles. It's an 1 3/4 ounce bottle, and I mix it 50-50. And that's what I used for my final coat, just dull coat. I mix the clear acrylics 50-50 as well, but I mix it with alcohol. Tamiya and alcohol.
Thank you.
Ralph, thanks again so much for being here this evening. I listened to you for hours. I'm so impressed with the way that you do things and the weathering techniques that you've developed. But thanks so much for telling us.
Maybe next time I can actually do something on screen for you.
That would be great.
There's something I'm working on right now. It's an ocean mine, beached, and the little girl's going to sit on top of it. But that's another project.
Well, I tell you, anytime that you're ready to come back, you just let me know, because I tell you, I so admire your modeling.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, folks, that's it for tonight. I hope that you've had an enjoyable evening. Most importantly, I hope you've learned something. I hear from people that they do. I hope you're one of them. I hope that you'll go to our website, newtracksmodeling.com, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our future Zoom shows. You'll get an email advising you of the login links. It's the only way you can get the logins for all of our next shows and be able to join us live. I also hope that you'll go to our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling. We have 1,296 subscribers to our site. And I hope that we can reach 1,300 before Christmas. So I need 4 of you, if you're not subscribers, to subscribe to our website, to our YouTube channel, so that we can reach the 1,300 before Christmas. To me, that's something that I never thought that we'd have that many subscribers on YouTube. I never thought we'd send out as many emails as we do each week. But I'm so pleased that you're interested in the show and that you want to participate. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, then you'll get the notices of all of the shows that you can only be live on if you're on YouTube. And we have roughly, because of all the past shows that we've done, there are roughly 750 videos. I can't believe that, but that's what there are. There's 750 videos of different shows or different segments of shows, because certain segments we try to break out so that if you're interested in only seeing, for example, Ralph's segment, then you can go to that segment and only see that. And that seems to be popular because we get a lot of people that are interested in viewing a specific segment multiple times to learn and make sure they understand it. So with that said, we have one last video that we'd like to show you. I think you'll find this interesting, particularly if you've ever been to a train show and been part of the setup for your event.
Go for it, Phil.
I'm not sure we're going to be able to show you this video. There we go. Well, it's got to bring back memories to a lot of us.
Don't you wish you had that much energy?
I was just so happy when it was finished, you know. Anyway, thanks so much for being here tonight. Happy modeling to you. Until next week, see you then. Phil, Pat, thank you so much for running the show tonight.
Pat, you've got to stop the YouTube. I can't stop it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, that place